Which selections will be the biggest hits in the 1988 NFL Draft? Will there be anyone like the Juice in the late 60s? This #1 pick became the #1 man to reach the 2,000-yard plateau. O.J. Simpson dashed through the ice and snow for the Bills, darted past defenders, and had everybody in Buffalo dancing in the streets. Sometimes greatness comes from schools off the beaten path. And the Bears, by discovering Jackson State and a running back named Walter Payton, truly were blessed. There was nobody better than Sweetness when it came time to dance to the music. Can the hits come in the 12th round? No question. The Raiders found linebacker Rod Martin there, and long before he was a Super Bowl hero, it was clear that he should have been taken higher. Maybe the choice will be a real hard rocker like Lawrence Taylor of the Giants, one of only 2 defensive players to be named MVP for a season. LT is more than tough enough. Atlanta is hoping fellow linebacker Andre Bruce is tough enough. We know he's the top choice. You are looking live at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in New York City, where hopefully we will be live for the next 7 hours. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Berman, and welcome to the 53rd National Football League. They'll call it the selection meeting. We call it the draft. The crowd is ready. We're ready here at ESPN. It's the first time the draft has been on Sunday, and today it goes, for the first time in 5 years, I should say 6 years, the draft goes back to a 2-day affair. They probably will go 4 or 5 rounds today. No round can start after 9 o'clock. We'll be on with you till 7 o'clock Eastern time, and then they'll have the rest of the selections tomorrow.
There was a total of 12 rounds in the draft,
set,
and the location was
a draft that will see many running backs, some outstanding wide receivers, and as we'll talk a little bit later on with our panel of experts, we could be seeing half of the first round consist of running backs and wide receivers, which should be interesting to you folks who follow college football because you've heard the names of these players for 3 or 4 years. The Lorenzo Whites, the Thurman Thomases, you know about these guys. The Tim Browns, the Michael Irvins, and so it will be not a quarterback draft, but a draft of many skill players. But at the top of the list, we're going to go defense. We already know about the first draft pick. He's Andre Bruce, linebacker from Auburn. He was selected by the Atlanta Falcons and already signed, sealed, delivered. He's yours. The second pick, well, as you know, earlier in the week, the Kansas City Chiefs made a deal with Detroit. They swapped positions. The Chiefs went from 3 to 2, and Detroit made out like a bandit because they only dropped 1 position to 3 overall, and they come up with Kansas City's second-round pick. But the Chiefs wanted to take the player that they've been eyeing, and we anticipate that's Neil Smith. But we now anticipate the commissioner.
NFL selection meeting is now in session. First selection, the first round, Atlanta Falcons.
Pause for dramatic effect.
Atlanta selects Andre Bruce, linebacker Auburn.
And what a surprise, right? You never saw the Falcons even use the phone. How do they do that? Andre Bruce, he's a man that's 6'5", 6'6", can fly like the wind. That outside linebacker weighs 235 pounds. Speed, perhaps, of a defensive back. Very defensive. And so the Atlanta Falcons have picked the guy that we have rated on the top of our board, and they had rated on the top of theirs. You add it up, we rate 4 different categories depending on the player, and you'll be getting familiar with these as the day goes on. The top possible grade will be a 20, and it will be 19-2 for Andre Bruce. And so now as we move to my immediate left, Tom Jackson, and to my far left, Paul Zimmerman, our own good doctor, Dr. Z. Can Andre Bruce be an impact player, Paul? Well, I tell you what, we'll answer that question shortly. Here's the commissioner.
Kansas City selects on the first round Neil Smith, defensive end, Nebraska.
All right, so Neil Smith, as expected. goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's what they made the deal for. Now let's go back first to Andre Bruce. Can he be an intimidator?
I don't see him as a Lawrence Taylor or Cornelius Bennett. Those guys, you saw them in college, the motor was going all the time. This guy takes one play off every now and then. He doesn't have the consistency. Of course, I'm the only one that has questions about him. Everybody else loves him.
Mr. Outside Linebacker. What do you think of Bruce?
Well, I think that inconsistency that Z alludes to, taking a play off every now and then, I think that can be conditioned. I think when you get to the pro level and you're making the $1 million salary plus, I think that he will tend to get consistent. Camp will do that for him. What I would worry about is a guy like this going to a team that he's not gonna make the Atlanta Falcons a good football team. And so I think what he's got to do is guard against getting lackadaisical over those first couple of years when he's going to have to struggle with a team that's going to struggle.
Well, this is the first draft for Ken Herrock, who now calls the shots as far as player personnel goes down with the Atlanta Falcons. And last year, what were some of the many problems with the Atlanta Falcons? Yeah, they had the worst record in football. 17 quarterback sacks last season. You should have that in a month if you're a good NFL team. And so now we have Andre Bruce going to the Falcons. Falcons need a player just about everywhere, and they feel that they might as well start with Bruce. Look for Atlanta to try and make a deal to get up in the last third or maybe the last half of this opening round. They certainly would like one of those top 5 receivers. They'll take number 5 if they can get up to maybe about 16 or 17. Let's move on to Neil Smith, fellas, because here's a guy that comes from Nebraska, Zim, that can play really all 4 positions on the line, although the Chiefs probably look at him outside, right?
Well, I talked to the Chiefs about him. He's a good sacker. He's a slender guy, runs a 4.58. And I could see him as an open side pass rusher, but they're looking to replace Art Still, who plays the power side, the left side. And I said, can he play, is he sturdy enough to play there? And they said, oh, yeah, we think he can, put on a little weight and fill in. So he's the answer to what they want.
So Neil Smith, Tommy, goes a division that you know full well, the AFC West. The Chiefs did have some great players there in Still and Bell, but they're not what they once were. Neil Smith, the man has a huge wingspan.
I met him last night for the first time, and it made me know why I retired from football.
He 65 tackles last year, 7.5 sacks for Nebraska. And remember, not everybody in the Big 8 spends their life passing all the time. They list him at 6'4", 257. Was a defensive tackle there, but as we say, he can play anywhere along the line. Probably will be used on the outside because Bill Moss, who was the last player that they selected in the first round, defensive player back in '84, the Pro Bowl nose tackle, certainly anchors that right there. So as he grades out, we total up the same thing as Andre Bruce, 19.2, quickness a 5.0, and a guy that size, that quick, is that scary. Great lateral movement. Reminds me a lot of Art Still, that physical specimen that he is, and I think he's going to dominate on his side of the ball. A great choice for the Kansas City Chiefs. We knew that Bruce would be one. Smith was a lock also. Now the fun begins as the Detroit Lions are up with the 3rd overall pick next. The draft continues in a moment.
I don't know whether to begin without him. I'm sure he's just sitting in that awful traffic.
Steve, in his new 190 class Mercedes, sitting in traffic. Oh, sure. He's sitting there in line, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel, tapping his foot, fiddling with the radio stations, staring at the taillights of the car in front of him. Marie, I've commuted with Steve.
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, it means... That's what it means.
It's not just another credit card. It's the exciting new Citibank NFL Visa card that's different from any credit card you've ever carried or seen. It makes a statement that football is your sport and shows the world your favorite NFL team. Join the team. Call 1-800-NFL-VISA for a free tryout. The membership fee will be waived for the first 6 months. And get this, a 20% savings on authentic NFL Pro Line gear that you charge to your card. It's the real thing, exactly what NFL players and coaches wear. And every time you use your card, you earn points you can redeem for free NFL Pro Line gear. Plus, just by being a Citibank NFL Visa card member, you're automatically entered in our Super Bowl 23 sweepstakes. Enjoy all the exclusive privileges and the fun that goes along with this card. Get on the phone now. Call 1-800-NFL-VISA to apply and join the team.
Round of lights here?
If you want the one light that outshines them all, ask for Bud Light.
Let me know when you're ready for another round.
Because everything else is just a light.
ESPN's coverage of the 1988 NFL Draft is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, engineered like no other car in the world. By Bud Light, everything else is just a light. By AT&T, the right choice. And by the Hartford, the insurance people of ITT. Welcome back to New York and the 53rd NFL Draft. We're not the only fellas here that will be watching the proceedings today. Let's go over to our guys who man the big board, Bob Lee and Mel Kiper.
All right, Chris, there's a big board downtown at Wall Street. It plots and charts the fortunes of the economy. And Mel Kiper's put together his big board of 40 top players. We're going to talk about Detroit, which right now has 850 to go to their selection. Picked up our first rumor of the day, though, Mel. Possibly the Rams looking to move up from their 14th spot, go where the Giants are going out of the 10 hole, and pick up Michael Irvin, wide receiver. It's a report, it's a rumor. We'll see if that eventuates. Detroit.
Well, Detroit, they made that great move, moving down one spot, picking up that second-round choice. Benny Blades would fit in extremely well here. He's an impact defender. Offensive coordinators have to change their game plan just with him being on the field. So I think Benny Blades here would be an outstanding choice.
We've heard talk about the quality of the draft. Some people have talked it down. Some people may want to talk it down. Well, for job security, if you're a player personnel guy, if things don't pan out. Also for economic reasons, because you've heard the story about Neil Smith, the difficulties he's having because the present-day value being put on his contract. You've been saying for years there are no bad drafts, just bad drafters.
I really believe that. They're only talking basically about the first round when they talk about bad drafts. And if you look back to '83, we had the 6 franchise quarterbacks. You put those 6 franchise quarterbacks in this draft, all of a sudden it goes to an outstanding year. But I really believe the depth at certain positions, particularly when you look at the running back spot, you look at wide receiver, you look at that defensive backfield position, and even if you look at the offensive line, 5, maybe 6 on round 1. So I think overall it's a strong 2nd to 5th round draft. And I think if you look, there's no glamour quarterbacks, there's no franchise receivers, but overall I think it's a very underrated draft.
So you wouldn't say that as good as we have it in the wide receiver category, these wide receivers aren't going to make the same kind of impact that the quarterbacks class of '83 made?
Those 3 receivers at the top, the Browns, the Sharps, the Irvins, can have the same impact that a Toon, a Rice, and a Brown had, and they can go back to the Chandler, Jefferson, and Lofton days. This is an outstanding core of receivers. There's no question all 3 of these guys can have an immediate impact in the NFL, particularly Irvin, because he comes from that ultimate pro-style attack at Miami.
We're awaiting the 3rd pick in the first round already. As predicted, Andre Bruce has the signed contract. No drama there. Neil Smith taken by Kansas City. Detroit picking 3rd in the draft. They flip-flop with Kansas City. Let's talk about the Lions. They've got less than 7 minutes to make their selection. Jerry Venisi coming over from the Chicago Bears. We were talking about this yesterday. He may take the long-term view of how to do this. Darryl Rogers, the coach, he's got to win. He's got to win now. It's maybe a little surprising to some people he's going to be back to coach this team at the beginning of the '88 season because the Lions have not played well.
Well, they really haven't. And when you look at the Lions, they have a lot of needs. That's why Jerry, I think, was smart by moving down. When you talk about picking up the 2nd round choice, which is almost like a 1st round choice, the 29th player overall. They didn't lose anything. They moved down to that 3 spot. Now they can move down again if they want. If they want to take Blades, fine. Blades is, like we talked about, an impact player that they probably could have considered with the 2nd choice. But this is a situational type thing where Kansas City just happened to feel like the Raiders would trade up to get Smith. They knew that the Raiders were offering a 2nd round pick as well. And to move up, you're talking about to move down 1 position and pick up the 29th player for a team like Detroit, an outstanding move. For Kansas City, a team that needs a lot of players, and not 2 or 3 players away from reaching the playoffs or winning a Super Bowl. They need bodies. They need to fill needs, and I think that's the reason that I question the trade that Kansas City made.
A lot of the assessments we'll be doing historically of the team's so-called blue chip picks, where teams pick in round 1, round 2. We'll call those the blue chip picks. 1980s in this decade, Detroit's had 14 selections in the first 2 rounds. They've drafted only 1 Pro Bowl player. That was Billy Sims. So they have come up empty in terms of Pro Bowl potential and Pro Bowl performance through this decade. And there might be a little bit of disagreement in that front office exactly where to go. No disagreement about where we're going with 5 minutes waiting on the Detroit selection. Let's get it back to Chris.
All right, Robert, thank you. And so the Detroit Lions, Jerry Vinici, as you mentioned, the GM, would like the DB. The coach, Darryl Rogers, they have some seats to sell, maybe would like a wide receiver. I have a feeling that a gentleman who has joined us here now kind of likes when teams draft wide receivers number one, at least when he was playing, and that's Joe Theismann, late of the Redskins, current of ESPN.
Right.
Welcome aboard. Should Detroit draft a receiver, or do you got to go with the safety who can play there 10 years?
I think because of the amount of receivers that are in the draft, Detroit has the luxury of waiting for the second round to make that pick. I really feel like they have to go, although they have to sell seats. I think they have to go to Benny Blades. I really think they have to shore up that defensive secondary. Last game of the season, they start 4 free agents in the secondary. You're in the division with the Bears. You've got to figure out some way to stop people. I think they have to go defense.
In this day and age, Joe, with a safety that can hit and cover the style that Blades can, he's the only one, along with a Ricky Dixon, who's a corner, that stand head and shoulders up there. So I guess you can't let a guy like that pass.
No, you really can't. You can't give up the athletic ability. This man is a great young football player, and he's made an impact. He can be an impact player for them. They need some leadership. They need some young leadership on defense as well. As far as Jerry Vinici goes and Darryl Rogers will make the pick. But believe me, we've seen what Vinici did with the Bears. It's going to be a lot of his input and research that's going to build that defense, and that's where they want to start.
Do you sometimes devise a game plan totally away? Can you devise a game plan? Is Blades that good to say to let's say offensive coordinator, gee, they have Blades back there, we got to go somewhere else? Is he that good?
Not necessarily at the safety position. You can go away from corners. You can set your corners up and stay away from them. But safeties are always going to be somewhere in the play. A lot of times you want to take a safety, you can split a tight end out and say, like we tried to do in the Super Bowl 18. Didn't work. We tried to remove their strong safety. Didn't matter. We couldn't do it. So you can't really devise a game plan to take safeties out. It's tough.
Best laid plans of mice and men, right, Zim? So Detroit, you knew they'd spend all 15 minutes for this pick. They're probably still figuring it out.
Well, we have it Blades all the way. As far as the selling seat stuff, I think the fans are smarter than people give them credit for. You don't sell seats on one guy making a fancy run back. You sell seats on victories, and fans understand that, especially in a good football town like Detroit.
A player like Blades, Tommy, can he make linebackers better immediately?
I think so. It puts a lot of pressure on people to do things, as Joe said, outside toward the cornerbacks. Running a 4.3 40, I think Benny Blades is going to be the kind of guy that you will not be able to get away from.
All right, the pick is coming up. Let's go up to the podium, and here's the commissioner. He has it on the card.
Detroit Lions. The Lions select in the first round Benny Blades, defensive back, Miami.
And so we have defense.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
1, 2, 3. Bruce to the Falcons. Smith to the Kansas City Chiefs. Benny Blades goes to the Detroit Lions. So certainly the general manager won out. And in Benny Blades, Zim and Tommy, you're seeing a player that a year ago led the nation in interceptions with 10 as a junior. And Benny Blades at 6'1", 216, also was the fastest man on the Miami Hurricanes, running under a 4.4 40. And it's not as if the Hurricanes don't have a lot of players that can fly.
Well, and I think the interesting thing about Blades is that he's not content with knocking the ball down. He's the kind of kid who will go up for you, make the acrobatic catch. He doesn't mind dishing out some punishment. He's the kind of kid that's going to not only affect his position, but every other position in the defensive backfield.
5 interceptions last year. Career interceptions, he had 19. And as you mentioned, Tommy, he can certainly lay the old lumber. I hate to use the cliche, but enforce 5-0. That kind of backs up what we were thinking. Now, Tampa Bay with the 4th pick. Let's go to the podium.
Tampa Bay selects Wisconsin tackle Paul Gruber.
First upset.
Next up, Cincinnati.
The first upset, I figured, and you figured, I think, Dr. Z, that the Buccaneers would give Vinny Testaverde somebody to throw the ball to. We thought that their man would be Sterling Sharpe, wide receiver from South Carolina. They go with the top-rated offensive lineman in the draft, where you got to protect the quarterback, too. Let's face it, Paul Gruber, tackle from Wisconsin, certainly not a bad pick, but guys thought that perhaps Vinny wanted someone to throw to.
Yeah, we thought that because he told us that.
Now, let me make that note on my watch. 12:21. It took 21 minutes. That's right. The first lie of the year. And so Paul Gruber, top lineman, goes to Tampa Bay. They hope he plays the old bookend tackle theory for the 10 years. And so now you're seeing the receivers slide down a bit. Now, the Bengals, of course, have made well, we'll talk about Gruber first. He's a guy that got better every year at Wisconsin. Still was improving as a senior. Definitely the top-rated lineman. Agrees him?
Well, I'd say the Bucks picked up 100 pounds on that pick by not taking a wide receiver. And in American money, you know, that's almost 200.
That's right. And so now the Bucks need a lot of things. Ray Perkins does down there. You draft an offensive tackle. It's a good move, Tommy?
Yeah, I think so. I think that good football teams are built on the front line. And I think that's what Perkins knows. And a quarterback may want a wide receiver. I'm sure Joe liked to see a wide receiver drafted, but you also like to see protection up in front.
I'll tell you, as a wide receiver, you'd rather have a left tackle, because if the left tackle doesn't block the defensive ends and the linebackers, you're never going to get the ball down the field to a receiver. So I think if I'm Vinny Testaverde, I'm delighted, because that way I'm going to have a few more seconds. If my receiver isn't quite as fast, that's quite all right. I'm going to have a little more time to get the ball off to him. So I think if I'm a quarterback, I'm delighted with this pick.
So Paul Gruber goes to the Buccaneers. Let's go to Bobby and Mel.
All right, we're talking about the importance of that selection when you look across the line, especially if you're playing left tackle in that division. In Tampa's division is some of the right offensive ends, defensive ends you've got to face.
You do. You got to go up against Dolman. You got to go up against Dent twice each year. And when you're talking about Vinny Testaverde, you're talking about a franchise quarterback, keeping him healthy, allowing him to hit the young receivers, Carrier and Hill. So when you're talking about Gruber, you put him over that left tackle spot, you keep that blindside pressure off of Testaverde, and like I say, facing Dent and Dolman twice each year, I'm sure that had a lot to do with Perkins' decision.
We're waiting on Cincinnati's selection. It'll be the fifth one in the first round. They've got about 12 and a half minutes to go, then to be followed by the Raiders. And we'll see what we've been hearing about the Raiders. Are they going to package the number 6 overall selection and the number 9 possibly to the Skins for Jay Schrader? So the hot rumor of the weekend. Our draft coverage continues from New York City right after this.
You can't beat the South Jersey locations or the facilities. Plus, Center City and Atlantic City are real close by.
Actually, I'm just staying here a short time in a Corman suite. But if I'm ever transferred up here permanently, I get a Corman apartment. My wife would flip.
Corman suite accommodations compared to a hotel, it's no contest.
I have a great apartment that I'm very proud of, and it's probably in the best spot in New Jersey.
I'd say Corman really works for me.
Miller Ford is out to break all sales records. We have the area's largest selection of new and used Ford cars, trucks, and vans ready to roll. If you're planning to buy a new car or truck this week, visit Miller Ford. A brand new 1988 F-150 XLT Lariat loaded with air conditioning, cruise control, tilt wheel, and sliding rear window. Now, for a limited time, take advantage of Ford's $500 factory rebate and buy all this truck for only $9,999. So what do you say?
Miller Ford.
Miller Ford, Route 38 in Mount Holly.
Serious. Battle lines are drawn for the NHL's Cold War. ESPN presents the Stanley Cup Playoffs. All live, all the way to the championship finals as teams take their shots at the defending champion Edmonton Oilers. The showdown heats up. The Stanley Cup Playoffs right here on ESPN.
The ballroom of the Marriott Marquis in New York City for the 9th consecutive year. ESPN's live and continuous coverage of the National Football League draft. We continue from the big board set. Along with Mel Kiper, I'm Bob Lee. We're waiting to see what Cincinnati does. 10 and a half minutes now remaining. Each team with 15 minutes to make that first round selection. Cincinnati. In the 80s, with their early picks, they've had a great emphasis on defense. We've had, the first 3 selections here have been defensive selections. We haven't seen a vaunted wide receiver taken. Will the Bengals take the first wide receiver?
I really think right now you're getting to the point where Timmy Brown is becoming the best player available. And it's going to be interesting to see who passes up a need factor to go with, I'd say you look at it, the Cincinnati Bengals, the defensive back position. And of course, Ricky Dixon from Oklahoma is sitting there. Even though he's a slight projection moving from free safety to corner, he would definitely fill that need for the Bengals. Evidently at the combine workout, all 3 Browns, Paul Brown, Mike Brown, and Pete Brown, were really looking specifically at running backs. Brad Muster's name came up. Hasn't been working out for a lot of clubs lately. Of course, he had that ankle injury during the year. But I think a running back, considering the fact that, James Brooks, tough to keep him healthy for 16 games. Kennebrew, you know, has had that weight fluctuate back and forth and has been an underachiever. I think you look at that running back position, that cornerback spot, that may supersede that wide receiver Timmy Brown being the best athlete on the board at this point.
We're waiting to see what happens if we go 5 selections deep without having a wide receiver. One of the teams that really has improved, Philadelphia. That's our next destination. Pete Axtell, good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning, Bob. One thought that occurred to me, a lot of people may wonder, why did Kansas City trade up, give up a second-round draft choice just to move from third to second choice? Well, the reason is some people cast great shadows over every draft. Some people around this league just have an impact even when they're not doing anything. What happened was when Al Davis traded Sean Jones for the number 9 draft pick, there were rumors that he was then going to trade up with Detroit, get the second pick, and take Neil Smith out from under Kansas City. Kansas City, anything but let the Raiders get a player that they wanted. They traded up, made quite a sacrifice. Now the next shadow comes up. Just talking to Buddy Ryan a few minutes ago, he was saying if Bobby Beathard makes the deal and trades Schrader for the Raiders' 6th and 9th pick in the first round, that's terrifying to the rest of the Eastern Division. Suddenly, Beathard, who's used to dealing with no ammunition in first rounds, would have a lot of ammunition and probably end up with Keith Jackson. Back to you, Bob.
All right, you look so good sitting at Buddy Ryan's desk with the picture of one of his many horses there behind you at the vet in Philadelphia. Rumors flying about the Schrader trade, and some people saying, is he the quarterback to trade? Younger?
I'll tell you, Mark Rypien's the key to the whole deal. You know, of course, Doug Williams coming off that knee injury. He only had that one big game, the Super Bowl. So I think Mark Rypien is the key to this whole deal if, in fact, Schrader is traded. We also hear Montana's name come up. We even hear the wild rumor about McMahon.
Yes.
You know, everybody seems to think that the Raiders will trade those 2 choices rather than keep those 2 selections. It's hard to say right now because it's a supply and demand with quarterbacks, Bob. You got to give up an awful lot to get a quarterback like this, and whether the Raiders want to do that is to be seen right now, but definitely the rumors are flying about those 3 quarterbacks.
We picked up a report just before we went on the air that the LA Rams, who have a lot of selections coming, of course, because of the Dickerson trade in the 14 hole, might be trying to move up to 10 and trade off with the Giants and pick up Michael Irvin. And Howard Balzer, one of our regulars every year, has been with us, situated at Rams headquarters. And let's check in with Howard.
Okay, Bob, here we are in Anaheim, a glorious day. We finally got some good weather out here. No rainouts in sight for any of the baseball teams. Obviously, the Rams, the big story of the morning here at Rams Park. A lot of rumors surrounding them trying to trade up with their 2 picks in the first round. Plus, of course, they have 3 second-round picks also. Michael Irvin has been a name that's mentioned. Don't count out Tim Brown.
Sharpe's
Remember, the
brother,
Rams
Shannon
looking for a
Sharpe,
kick
would later
returner
be
now that
drafted
Ron Brown
in the
has announced his
1990
retirement to
NFL draft
pursue
in the 7th
a track
round.
career.
And
Other talk
Shannon
with
Sharpe
San Diego.
and
The
Sterling
Chargers
Sharpe
don't
would
have
both
a
go
second-round
on to be
pick.
Hall of Fame
That went to the
brothers,
Rams in the
being
Barry
first
Redden
brothers
deal
to be
last year.
enshrined in
The
the
Chargers and the
Pro
Rams
Football Hall of
apparently
Fame, both
talking
as
again.
wide receivers.
Tight end Pete Holohan might be involved. Also, running back Gary Anderson. So the Rams trying to make a lot of moves to get up. Craig Hayward might not be in their plans. Apparently, the organization has perhaps counted him out. Gaston Green might be a possibility for the Rams further down in that first round, Bob.
A lot of rumors flying about possibility to trade up. One other possibility. Philadelphia, Miami, maybe making a move?
Miami and Philadelphia evidently both have a keen interest in Keith Jackson, tight end from Oklahoma. You have Green Bay sitting there with that 7th choice. Lindy Infante, going back to when he was the offensive coordinator at Tulane, had Rodney Holman. Moves to Cincinnati, had Dan Ross. Over to Cleveland with Ozzie Newsome. Tight end's a key position for Infante, and if you look at those 2 clubs, Miami and Philadelphia, the kind of impact that Keith Jackson could have with a Marino, with a Randall Cunningham, those 2 clubs may be jockeying for position in attempts to garner the Oklahoma tight end.
And you have to wonder if the Rams have been talking about trading up with the Giants to get Michael Irvin, whether they have to make that trade now. 4 selections deep, and no wide receiver has been put up on the big board. Chris?
All right, Bobby, just after seeing Howard Balzer and also Mel, we're going to vote at the end of the 7 hours best hair in the league. Mel or Howard Balzer. Bengals, what have they been doing? Of course, they spent their career in the 80s drafting wide receivers. Do they go with another one? Paul Brown, in print, not that long ago, said, I really would like to sign Tim Brown. Tim Brown's going to ask for a lot of dollars. You have to wonder, do they go again? This is the 20 selections in the first 2 rounds. They've gotten 11 starters out of that, which is pretty good, but they draft a lot of wide receivers over the years. Of course, they have McGee and Eddie Brown, and then in 81, they went Verser, Collinsworth, 1 and 2. I can't see the Bengals going receiver. Dr. Z, I would have to think that Ricky Dixon, right? That's who you were talking about. Because there's a fall-off after Blades and Dixon, and third defensive back is quite a way lower, correct?
Well, they're early in the week, their projected order was Blades #1, Dixon #2, and then a dogfight among the wide receivers. Muster is a name that's been mentioned a lot. They like him. In fact, Pete Brown, their personnel manager, called him a Jack Armstrong type. They like him very much, but I think they like Dixon better.
Well, we shall know because the pick is now at the podium, and let's check in with the commissioner. Checking the name, of course.
Cincinnati Bengals. Pick on the first round, defensive back, Oklahoma, Ricky Dixon. Los Angeles Raiders are up.
And so the Bengals go with Ricky Dixon, and we have 4 defensive players and an offensive lineman chosen in the first 5. And now I think we come to wide receivers and running backs. So Dixon, who played safety at college, going to play corner in the pros, goes to the Cincinnati Bengals. Quickly, let's bring in Bino Cook, who, of course, has been on the Tim Brown watch personally through his career at Notre Dame. You don't want to call him a plummeter here, but here's the Heisman Trophy winner. How far could he slide down, and does he surprise you?
Well, whoever gets him still is going to get a great player, and he's also a kid who absolutely caused no problems. He's a class individual. He's going to be able to punt returns, kickoff returns. He will be in the Pro Bowl within 3 seasons.
Maybe, if the Raiders don't do anything. Al Davis has enjoyed Heisman Trophy winners in the past. He does have some wide receivers. Would Tim Brown look good in Raider colors?
Well, he looked good in any colors. That's the way I look at him. I mean, he's going to be a great player. They want defensive backs, but Tim Brown, when he plays, again, he will be an outstanding player in the NFL. There's no doubt he would go within the next couple players.
We'll get back, Bino, to Tim Brown shortly. Let's take a look at the figures on Ricky Dixon, who, as we mentioned, was a safety for Oklahoma, but as Null rates him, and so the Cincinnati Bengals, realizing that Blades and Dixon, a class of their own, had to go defensive back. Good move. I mean,
I think so. I think if you need a corner, he's a good one. He received a lot of one-on-one coverage when he was at Oklahoma, and I think that that's going to help him make the adjustments in the corner. You mentioned his main attributes, quickness and agility, and you can't look for anything better in corner. Quickness and agility, and that ability to go up and get the football, and Ricky's got all of that.
No question that the Bengals need some help defensively. I mean, even though they didn't show much of the one-loss record, their offensive stats, if you just look at stats, of course, there are lies, darn lies in statistics, some people say, but the Bengals have been looking for defensive help in a long time, and they got Dixon in the first round. We'll be back with the next pick because the fun is just beginning. The Raiders, who own the next pick, the 6th overall and the 9th overall, are up next, and we'll be back to New York in a moment.
Get real. Really real.
The 1988 NFL Draft on teams and on the Cowboys dynasty in the 1990s, and on teams in the 2000s included players such as Michael Irvin, Thurman Thomas, and Rod Woodson, with Michael Irvin playing a key part of the Cowboys dynasty, Thurman Thomas playing a centerpiece of the Bills' 4 Super Bowl runs, and Rod Woodson in his dominant defensive back for years, playing on teams such as the Pittsburgh Steelers, the San Francisco 49ers, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Oakland Raiders.
For your Proline catalog, send $1 to 10812 Alder Circle, Dallas, Texas, 75238. That's 10812 Alder Circle, Dallas, Texas.
We are back at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in New York. Chris Berman and a cast of thousands as we continue our live coverage of the 53rd NFL Draft. A couple of notes. When the Buccaneers selected Paul Gruber from Wisconsin, they also, back in 1980, took an offensive lineman from Wisconsin, Ray Snell, in the first round. Never quite turned out to be the player that they obviously hope that Gruber will be. And a note on Benny Blades. If you're thinking, gee, I wonder how long ago a defensive back went that high, I can't remember. You're not suffering from Alzheimer's because you have to go back to 1963 when the Cardinals picked Jerry Stovall that high or higher with the second overall pick. So that tells you what kind of class Benny Blades is in. Now, the rumors flying about Jay Schroeder maybe getting traded from the Redskins to the Raiders now that the Raiders moved up and had the 6th and the 9th overall pick. Our Pete Axthelm visited with Bobby Beathard, GM of the Redskins, and he talked about the possibility.
One hot topic in the league, are you going to trade Jay Schroeder?
I really think it's highly unlikely that there'll be any deal for Jay Schroeder. We had an inquiry from a team earlier this spring, and we listened. There had been no offer made for Jay Schroeder, and the only thing our thought was that if people are going to make these inquiries, we have to listen. I think you have to listen when any team calls about a trade. If it's something that could help the Redskins, then possibly we'd consider that. But we'd love to go to training camp just the way we are because Doug Williams did a great job, and Jay Schroeder's a young quarterback. I think he has a great future, so it would be very, very unlikely that we would make a trade for a quarterback.
The Raiders with the next selection. There they are on the special helmet phone. And
that's Al Davis's brother, Jerry.
Yeah.
No, really.
Is it?
Yeah, the guy in the light jacket is Al's brother.
Well, are they talking about a trade? No.
Well, I talked to him before. He said no trade. And I said Tim Brown was the guy that I thought they'd pick, and he said no, they don't need a receiver. They seem to think that Mervyn Fernandez could play. They're the only ones that do. They said defensive back if available or offensive lineman. I still think Tim Brown.
What about their quarterback situation? I mean, it's almost impossible to trade for a QB, but they got to go with Wilson. We talked last night. Shanahan likes Wilson a little bit, the new coach?
Well, I think that if he's there and he's the only guy you have to like him. But I think if they get a chance to pick up a good quarterback, a guy that they think can help this football team. Although I will say this too, when Bo Jackson is in running, when he puts down his baseball glove and he comes and he runs, he makes Mark Wilson a better quarterback. Maybe that's what Shanahan's depending on.
I just heard a rumor that the Raiders are trying to trade for Joe Theismann. Anything to that, Joe?
No, as a matter of fact, I just made the phone call. There was no. I heard the rumor myself.
Now that's your kind of team.
I wrote something down to Pete, and I was going to hand it to him. Say, would you consider it? I actually tried to go to the Raiders when I was unable to play with the Redskins anymore, and I asked if he was interested. He said, "Excuse me." So that took care of that. I really believe the Raiders they'll either trade. I don't think they're going to trade for a quarterback. A lot of time when a new coach takes over, he's willing to give that other quarterback a good look. And this is where I think it'll happen here with the Raiders. You don't have the same, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this guy syndrome. You've got a new coach. He says, okay, maybe a new system, maybe a new life will change this guy's outlook. I think that's what they have with Wilson. Plus, you have to remember, Al Davis's ego is involved. He drafted Wilson. I don't think he's going to give up on him right now. He's going to try and surround him with some support. And Tommy brought up a great point. When they get Bo Jackson there, it makes everybody better. The trouble is you don't want to be 0-7 or 0-8 by the time you get Bo into uniform.
Yeah, that is a concern, as the Raiders have never drafted this high, 6th overall. And, of course, they pick up the 9th pick in the deal involving Sean Jones. I do know this, that they were talking to the Chargers, and Steve Ortmeyer, who used to be with the Raiders, perhaps packaging receiver Dokie Williams and Mark Wilson for a Chargers #1. They also talked to the Chargers maybe about just Wilson going down there. The Chargers already got Malone. They're going to get Wilson too. I mean, they're collecting. At any rate, I'll stop that sentence right there. But that was a rumor, and that they were indeed on the phone with San Diego, but no trade to that effect. As we wait, think about the guys that are waiting for that phone call to find out when they're drafted. It could take an hour, could take 5 hours. Our Andrea Joyce is in Stillwater, Oklahoma, with a running back who could be a first-rounder, Thurman Thomas. Hello, Andrea.
Hello, Chris. We all know that the NFL team officials need piles and piles of statistics to get through this day. Players, on the other hand, have a couple of other needs: patience and maybe enough food to get them through what could be several hours of waiting. In Thurman Thomas's apartment, a typical college refrigerator, practically empty, but when you walk over to the stove, you see that something is definitely going on here. This is a special occasion. Probably more food here than Thurman has ever had in this apartment. Go on into the living room, and the transformation of this apartment continues. Take a look at this. All of the furniture strategically strategically placed around the one essential piece of equipment this afternoon, that, of course, being the television set. It is a little bit quiet in here right now. You see Thurman sitting there very pensively. All of the folks here, of course, expect everything to change by the end of the first round. They expect there to be some celebrating. Now back to New York and Chris Berman.
And here go the Raiders.
Raiders select on the first round, wide receiver, Notre Dame, Timbrown.
Like we said, Al likes to collect Heisman Trophy winners. You had Marcus Allen, and we didn't mean to cut Andrea off so quickly because, you know, we're kind of getting hungry. It looks like there were some good things in the kitchen. Timbrown, so he certainly doesn't plummet very far. And so the Raiders, they have their receivers. They have Lofton and Fernandez, but I guess the man can return kicks, he can return punts, and he's a heck of a player.
I think when you have two first-round choices like they do, on your first one, you go for the exceptional athlete. You don't think of position. On your second one, now you can start thinking of filling a need like offensive line or something like that. But if you've got that exceptional talent, you got to grab them on that high pick.
Offensive line, of course, they did last year with Clay. They've done some high picks, have the Raiders, so we shall see what they do. But obviously, we know now that the number 6 and the number 9 overall pick are not going to be involved in a trade. So Timbrown, the Heisman Trophy winner, goes to the Los Angeles Raiders. And just thinking of, well, let's look at Timbrown, and of course you know what he's done. People questioned the last half of the college football season. They were kind of down on him, but I think down because, gee, should he win the Heisman Trophy? So we should qualify, how down are you on him? Now, he never did have the benefit of a classic drop-back quarterback, pro-style quarterback.
How many college wide receivers do?
Not too many, of course, at Miami. They play in the pro set more.
Yeah, well, that's one school.
Well, I came up with one off the top of my head. Okay. Brown University and Columbia, of course, also have those, but that's another story.
Columbia has a classic major.
So Timbrown returns the punts, returns the kicks, and as we all remember, the Monday night game in which the Rams came out of nowhere when Ron Brown was doing the returning. You can change a game right away with just kick and punt returning, and he rates to a 19-2, and quickness, you can't be any higher. You know, thinking about Thurman Thomas and also Timbrown and all these guys, Tommy, what was it like for you sitting, waiting for the call to come when it was draft day for you?
Oh, I think most players tend to rate themselves a little bit higher than the various rating systems that are around this country. I thought that I would be a first-round draft choice. I thought I would go somewhere low in the first round. By the time the first 2 rounds went by, I found myself being a little bit upset because that translated into lost dollars. I think that's why most ball players get upset. But the fact is, if you go in those first 3 or 4 rounds, you're going to get a real good look from the coaches, and you just make the best of it. I was very nervous, but a little bit angry.
Joe, what about yourself? Waiting for the call, and of course you have an interesting story on that.
Well, it was terribly frustrating. What really happened, and Tommy brings up an interesting point, you sometimes rate yourself higher than you actually have other people view you. My problem was I had a lot of different people, a lot of different scouts, a lot of different teams come up and say, if you're still around in the first round, we're going to draft you. Well, I was around in the first round. I was around in the second round. I was around in the third round. Finally, midway through the third round, I said, the heck with it, I'm going to play basketball. They called me off the basketball court to come tell me Miami drafted me. I was very disappointed.
All right, so as the players wait, we'll be checking back with Thurman Thomas and see who's going to go play basketball. And some guys are going to get selected today to be football players. We'll be back in New York as the Packers are next up with the 7th overall pick.
Saying goodbye to a car you've owned for years is a lot like saying goodbye to an old friend. But if it's a Mercedes-Benz, there's always this cheering fact to consider. Over the years, Mercedes-Benz automobiles as a line have retained a higher percentage of their original value than any other make of car sold in America. And that can make the sorrow of parting a little sweeter.
I've devised my own way to cook perfect steaks without slicing them open. I cook an extra little piece, and I test it. No one ever knows. Because I eat the evidence. Beef. Real food for real people.
The new Black & Decker push-button weed trimmer versus this conventional trimmer. Only Black & Decker has a push-button that lets out line for continuous cutting, no bumping. While the conventional trimmer makes a better sweater, Black & Decker makes an easier-to-use trimmer.
This Louisiana lefty has 11 career no-hitters before the end of his junior year in high school. I'm Chris Fowler. The story of Rusty Rugg on this week's Scholastic Sports America, Wednesday on ESPN.
Green Bay Packers are next up as we're back live in New York now. There is a question with the new coach, Lindy Infante. And you know that Lindy is an offensive-minded guy. Does he go for a tight end like Keith Jackson? Some feel that that would be a reach with the 7th pick of the draft, that he does not rate that high on the board. But I wonder, with no quarterbacks that really are deep throwers, with Wright and Mikowski, they all wear number 5, and Bosco, and no backs that are great receivers out of the backfield, Jim, that with Jackson head and shoulders above everybody else at a tight end, isn't this a good pick for them?
No, because I want Buddy Ryan to get him, because that's the way I picked it in the paper.
Okay.
But I think they wanted defense. The top 3 are gone. They would have taken any one of the top 3. They said now they might trade down. But I don't think they expected Sterling Sharpe to be here. So right now, at this point, I'd say Sterling Sharpe or Michael Irvin, wide receivers. Even though their receivers are pretty good, they're not in that class where they have Stanley and Epps, and they have some good receivers. Exceptional talent.
You know, people waiting because there's so many wide receivers, and some of them have to start disappearing. Timmy Brown now. But, and this is, granted, again, keep in mind, this is my first year doing this, the Jack rating system. But I look for them to maybe go for somebody on a defensive line, if they can get a good defensive lineman, a stub, someone of that nature.
But not this high.
Yeah, maybe not right now, but yeah, or a wide receiver.
With those 2 guys left, with Sharpe and Irvin, maybe that's where they go. We'll check with the big board and see if they go for we'll get it officially done on the draft now, okay, guys? Best player available. Mark it down, 1248. Who is it, Hob and Mel?
All right. It was early, but he got it in. Best athlete available. This is the big board with the top 40 that Mel Kiper has put together with his grades. The big board on Wall Street, sometimes you get that herd mentality.
NFL
Somebody
draft
starts
was
selling.
one
We
of the
saw what
biggest
happened last
and one of
October
the best
19th on
drafts
Black Monday.
by
You
its
see it on draft
bringing
day.
many Hall of
Something
Famers
happens,
to
the run starts.
And
Does
the
Tim
draft
Brown's
reshaped
selection start the
1990s
run
and
on wide
early
receivers and
2000s
still make the
taller.
Rams want to move up from 14 to 10? Or has any logjam been broken here?
Well, we talk about all the needs of these teams. We talk about 2 or 3 major teams for each club, Bob. And when you talk about the wide receivers of Sharpe and Irvin, 2 franchise guys, now to a team like the Jets, who obviously need offensive line help. You see a Cadigan, you see a Randall McDaniel sitting there as well, 2 outstanding players. Do they say, okay, let's match up Irvin with Toon or Sharpe with Toon, and let's have that dynamite combination to provide O'Brien with 2 outstanding targets, rather than go for those 2 offensive linemen, either Cadigan or McDaniel? That's the interesting thing with the Jets. An underrated player on the line. Nobody seems to mention, Eric Moore's name. Yeah. He seems to go unnoticed. Everybody feels like, Kevin Allen was a bust from Indiana. He wore number 75 as well. You look at Eric Moore. Eric Moore is a quality bookend offensive tackle. This guy can be at that left tackle position and stay there for 10 to 12 years and be a Pro Bowler.
All right, let's zero in on the Green Bay Packers. They have just under 7 minutes now to make their selection in the first round. It'll be the 7th overall selection. And that's not the selection being announced at this point. Tom Bratz, player personnel recovering from a heart attack. You look back, they took Brent Fullwood last year. That was the first time in 5 years, in 6 years actually, that the Packers had gone for a so-called skilled position. I know Paul Zimmerman doesn't like me not referring to offensive linemen as skill positions, certainly. We're talking the wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks. So they had not done well. They also have not done well historically, the Packers, in the common draft with their number 1 selections. You look back at their number 1s in the common draft, they've only drafted 2 Pro Bowlers early on. They've got some specific needs. Let me pin you down. Get your tarot cards out. Where are they going with this?
Well, I think defense is their key need. But if you look at the board right now, you don't see any defensive linemen that would be worthy of that pick. No defensive backs. You look over to offense, and I think when you see a